Bio-inspired and biofunctional, I think, are two words that are really, I think, very active buzzwords right now in the materials community in terms of new things that we can do with materials. And so bio-inspired is used in a context where we look at something that nature does and what the specific mechanism is that nature uses to accomplish that task. And then we try to copy that mechanism in a synthetic material. So people are often inspired, for example, by the ability of nature to have certain wetting properties or materials with certain responsive properties or certain mechanical properties, toughness, extensibility. We try to copy those properties in a synthetic material. Biofunctional, I think, means more that you take something from nature that has its specific biological functionality and you incorporate that into your material. And so examples there would be things like catalysts that incorporate enzymes. So I would say biocatalysis is really focused on biofunctional materials. Or, for example, biomaterials that incorporate protein sequences that allow them to be degraded by cells or to communicate with cells. They contain these biological functional groups that enable communication between the material and an organism or a cell. And so that really involves then capturing a specific biological functionality. My name is Brad Olson. I'm the Paul M. Cook Career Development Assistant Professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering. Been here just over 4 years now at MIT. My lab focuses on engineering new materials out of proteins, protein polymer hybrids, and different sorts of polymers with a particular focus on materials that can be processed in water. We're very interested in applying these materials to a variety of different applications, from biomaterials to new sustainable polymers to things that address concerns in national defense and in energy. We're very interested in materials that are based on new sorts of polymers that are derived from or inspired by biology. And so we look at using not only polymer chemistry but biochemistry, in particular protein expression and synthesis, in order to design new materials that can act as interesting models for testing fundamental scientific questions. So, for example, we can build polymers with new shapes or new sequences of monomers that will endow them with specific sorts of properties. And we try to understand how the construction of these molecules leads to changes in the mechanics of the material, or the way a material self-assembles, or potentially aspects of how a material might undergo certain dynamic properties. And then by understanding these fundamental scientific questions, our hope is to move the capability of materials forward such that we can address a lot of the different applications of interest to us.